Welcome to Brazos Matters. I'm Jay Sokol. So I think we have an interesting show for you today. We're going to talk about dogs and cats and maybe some other interesting critters and how they're handled in the city of Bryan, specifically by the Bryan Animal Center. So I'm a guy who's had exactly one pet in my life, a now elderly beagle mix named Tiger, who can be found doing his business in our yard while staring down a Google Street Cam vehicle. But I digress from that. I think we're going to learn a lot today. From Ashley Rodriguez Bishop, Animal Services Supervisor for the Bryan Animal Center. How you doing, Ashley?
Howdy. I'm doing really well, actually.
Good.
It's been an interesting week.
Okay. Well, we may get to some of that stuff.
Okay.
Let's just start here. Where are you from, and how did the universe lead you to this place, this career, and this position?
Oh, that's such a loaded question. So I'm originally from Brownsville, Texas. I grew up in the Rio Grande Valley.
Okay.
I've always had an affinity for animals, always. I've always loved Chihuahuas. It's just kind of my niche of dog. And, throughout my high school career, I was going between criminal justice and veterinary medicine. So I began actually volunteering for the local shelter there. And I just found the greatest team at the local shelter in Brownsville, and it just took off. Like my love for municipal sheltering and everything, my love for everything that I do on a daily basis just grew from there.
Okay, so how did you get from there to here?
So from there to here, so I graduated with a bachelor's of biology from the University of Texas at Brownsville.
Okay.
And then I took about a year off, and I was working with a veterinary clinic. And then I finally said, I want to do something in public health. And I was like, I didn't know if I specifically wanted to do something with the state, but more specifically to help a local community. So I ended up applying for the graduate program with Texas A&M and the College of Veterinary Medicine. And they had a perfect program, which ended up being the veterinary epidemiology and public health route. And it all took off from there. And here I am.
Okay, so from there to the Bryan Animal Center then.
So then I was, really wanting to go back home because the epidemic of overpopulation is very, very, it's a big problem down there. So I, honestly, I was here for another year where I was trying to figure out whether or not I wanted to go back home. And then I met my husband.
Yep, that can derail plans.
And so I started working for the city of Bryan in 2017. And, and here we are, a couple of years later. And I don't know, I've been enjoying Bryan College Station. It's been a very interesting area to get used to from being in Brownsville my whole life. So I'm very happy to be here.
I think our engineer, Matt, over here is from the valley as well, so he speaks your language. He understands where you came from and that transition here. So for people who may not know, there are really two primary shelters in this community.
Correct.
You have Aggieland Humane Society that takes care of, and correct me if I'm wrong here, College Station and Brazos County.
Correct.
And then the Bryan Animal Center is specific to the city of Bryan.
Correct.
And so you may have to explain what that, in fact, explain what that means for you guys and what the range of services are that you provide.
Of course. So we are a very interesting area where there are 3 different jurisdictions that actually do kind of the same thing. So Aggieland Humane Society, as you stated, takes care of the city of College Station and Brazos County. So that means everything within the city limits of College Station goes to Aggieland, and then anything outside of the city limits of Bryan that is considered Brazos County also goes to Aggieland. So our department, which is both animal control and the animal center, so the adoption facility, we only take care of all the animals within our own city limits. So each one of those jurisdictions also have their own animal control. So College Station has their own animal control, Brazos County has their livestock unit, and then we have our own animal control as well.
And I'm sure you all have to kind of play together and coordinate in the ways that are required.
Of course. Yeah. And, we all work very well together, and we have to because we're a very tight-knit county, and, animals don't know city lines or county lines or any of that. So we make sure to communicate very well, and we communicate very well, and we have a great partnership with Aggieland as well. So it's been great to see all of the things that we're able to do to help the pets in our community.
So talk about the range of services that you provide.
So we are both, like I said, animal control Control and the Brain Animal Center. So the Brain Animal Center is more of our adoptions, reunification of animals that actually come into the facility from Animal Control or Good Samaritans. We also have free programs such as free microchips and free spay and neuter services for our residents. And just kind of any animal question that they might have, we're a good resource. My whole goal in this industry has been to get away kind of from the animal shelter mentality and the dog catcher mentality. We're no longer those things anymore.
Right.
So, we're here as a resource for the community, and we want to make sure that our community knows that.
So I feel like this is an unusual community for what you do. And you can tell me if I'm wrong about that. But, we're a relatively, medium-sized community with a monster university plopped in the middle, right? And so because there's so many college students, whether with Texas A&M or with Blinn College, and more of them are beginning to live in the city of Bryan, I have to think that there are some seasonal issues that you guys deal with that maybe a typical community doesn't. Fair or no?
No, you're absolutely correct. When I talk to my colleagues that are back home or just other colleagues in general, whether it's through the nation or throughout the state, we're a very interesting community where that happens, where it's like we get an influx of all these students who come in. So a lot of times what happens is we'll get an influx during the fall of a lot of pets because there's more people out in the streets and out and about doing things. And then we slow down in adoptions during the summer. Like right now, we are very slow. Wednesday we had maybe 2 customers come in.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're very slow during the summer, and we go through the waves of what the university has going on, which makes our jobs a little bit more interesting.
What about when I was in school, and I'm a lot older than you, when I was here at A&M, it really wasn't that typical for students to either have pets or bring the pets with them from wherever they came from. Now it feels like that's very different. A lot of students have their pets, and maybe they brought them from wherever they came from. But I don't know that they always know what they're supposed to do to be here, legally and be the responsible pet owners. Do you run into things like that?
We do. The Brazos County has a Brazos County license, so that is mandatory for all of our pets here within the Brazos County. And, we run into a lot of situations where it's just about education, just simply about, why do we rabies vaccinate our animals? What is the importance of that? Why is it important to make sure that your dog's spayed or neutered? A lot of times when things are running at large or running loose, that's probably the main reason. They're out there looking for a little partner or something. So, we always try to educate. If you're in an area, look for those resources if you're needing help when it comes to spay and neuter, or even just the simplest thing as, well, my dog is, acting a little weird or having issues with, maybe walking on a leash or something like that. Reach out to your shelters. They probably have resources to either trainers or veterinarians, or they can give you some advice yourself. I have a niche of employees who come from all walks of life, livestock, the veterinary school. I personally have worked at the vet school and in medical records during my time, during my graduate program. So there's a lot of expertise in that building, and we all have our own little area that we love to share our knowledge.
So if I am a parent of a college-bound kid, and let's say I live in Dallas, and I'm sending my kiddo and her pet with her to live in Bryan, to go to school, do I need to ensure that pet is licensed out of Brazos County?
Correct. If they're going to be here longer than an allotted time, they have to be licensed here in Brazos County.
What's the allotted time?
It's 30 days.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if you're going to be here for that allotted time, make sure that you reach out to your local agencies. And we have a lot of people who call who are saying, hey, I'm moving to Bryan College Station because I found a job with the university. Am I allowed to have a potbelly pig? Or am I allowed to have a rooster within the city limits? Yeah. We encourage those questions because every county, every city, every state, every nation is different in what they require. So it's really important that you reach out and ask those questions.
So if I go into the Bryan Animal Center today, what kind of, this is a not the right term, but I'm going to use it anyway. What kind of inventory do you have right now? Like who are your four-legged clients, or maybe you've got two-legged clients too? What do you have? What animals are represented there right now?
So right now, mostly cats and dogs,
Okay.
and it's generally kind of what our population looks like overall. We sometimes get some, odd critters. We've had iguanas come through. I've had tegus, which is a very large lizard. We've had 200 mice at one point. I have had snakes.
You take mice.
We don't take mice. It happened to be a cruelty situation to where we had to go in and seize all these animals. So it was a very long Sunday, 10 hours worth of getting all these animals out. So we take all walks of life for the most part. If you find a stray horse in our city limits, we do not hold on to those. That actually is something that the county takes care of. But if it's a cruelty situation within our city limits that deals with any kind of animal, then that does come to us while we go through that process.
Sorry, my brain just stuck on the mice. What do you do when you get, how many did you say?
It was about 200.
What do you do with 200 mice?
We reach out to, experts in those fields. This particular situation had a bunch of snakes and other critters in their home.
Okay.
So, a lot of the mice were handleable. Some of them got adopted through rescue organizations that we work with.
You adopted out mice.
We've had a rat come through. We had a pet rat at our facility. Somebody found a rat just walking around in an apartment complex too. We called him Tui, and he was a resident at our facility for probably a year.
I see what you did there. I see the Ratatouille connection there.
So yeah, we see all kinds of walks of life. Our officers have brought in everything from owls to egrets to all kinds of stuff. And a lot of times with that specialized stuff, we reach out to local rehabbers that deal with wildlife and all that stuff so that they can take care of those animals specifically.
What kind of local rehabbers exist around here? Because I'm not as I know some of those exist, but I don't know what those are.
So rehabbers, so they do have to be licensed within the state. So if you're ever interested in doing that, make sure you reach out to the state, because we can be very finicky when it comes to what you can house, when you can house it, how you can house it, and things like that. But one of the rescue groups, shout out to Paws and Claws. She is great. Anytime we have something that comes in, she's very popular on the social medias here locally. She's out and about, rescuing all the wildlife that, needs help. And has her expertise.
Like what?
Here recently, I saw she was out on Highway 6 rescuing a hawk. That had been injured, and she was out there catching it. She has helped us with baby possums that have come through. We had an injured raccoon one time that she also rehabbed as well. So we're great to have partners like that to help us with the wildlife that comes in.
I was going to say if you could see me right now, but we do have cameras in here now. My eyebrows are just arched so much because you're revealing a part of your world that most people don't get to see or know about.
We've even had a prairie dog come through our facility as well. And we reach out to people who have that expertise in wildlife and things like that, and so we're able to save those lives as well.
If you just tuned in, I'm Jay Sokol. You're listening to Brazos Matters. My guest today is Ashley Rodriguez Bishop from the Bryan Animal Center. So it can't be cheap to operate an animal shelter. Do you get all of your funding from the city of Bryan, and do you just have city staff, or is there also some level of donations and volunteers that kind of help you do what you do?
It's a multi-level of all of that. Okay. So we are a general fund department with the city. So yes, we are completely funded. My staff and everything that we have going on is strictly from the city. And then we do take in donations as well. And those donations go to, the care of the animals, whether it's vet care or supplies that we need. All those donations go to that. And as far as volunteers, we take them all the time. Most of my staff is based in our city employees. We have several part-timers, and I have 11 full-time employees overall, 4 of those which are animal control officers who are out in the fields. But yeah, we accept volunteers, and we also do court-ordered community service at our facility as well. So if you need to pay off a ticket or something like that, we allow that at our facility. So kind of all the things are what we have.
And for anyone who didn't pick up on what Ashley just said, you say you are a general funded department, which means that they are, for lack of a better word, competing for funding with the police department, the fire department, parks and recreation. It's not, it's not easy to have enough money for everybody to do all the things.
Correct. And generally within our industry, which I love to call the animal world, it's tough. I'm not going to lie. In the 15 years that I've been doing this, especially within the municipal setting, funding, it can be very tough. Because obviously there are other things in the city that need to be taken care of, the potholes and things like that.
Sure.
So, I'm very lucky to be with the city of Bryan and, the care that they put towards our department, because you don't get that at a lot of places, unfortunately.
Right. So what is on your wish list? Knowing that you're competing with other departments and economic conditions and the whole thing, what would you like to have or see happen or implement, say, within the next, 5 years?
So in the next 5 years, I'm hoping for a new facility.
Okay.
Yeah, so we are on the capital improvements plan for the city for a new building within fiscal year 2026. I'm hoping that comes to fruition. For those of you who work in municipal government, you know that things sometimes can change.
Right.
So, obviously we could easily be moved to another year, things like that. So that is my biggest wish at this point, is to get a new facility so that we can start offering some more community service for our citizens, because at the end of the day, they are the ones who fund our department, and we want to give back as much as we can.
Well, what would that new facility hopefully be able to do that your current facility can't?
Lots of things, actually. We don't have a lot of space right now.
Yeah.
So, a lot of our areas are used for a lot of different purposes. And that could be detrimental in a lot of ways. One is, you're tracking, a big thing of an animal shelter. We're just like a veterinary clinic and a boarding facility put in one. Not only do we have to worry about housing all the animals safely, you're having to worry about everything that's coming in. I mean, you don't know what these animals have. We mostly take in strays. So, we have no idea, if they've been vaccinated, haven't been vaccinated. So we're hoping that this new facility that we do get gives us more space, but also allows us to do more programs, where we would love to, enact the community and having them be more involved. We would love to do a reading program. We had a wonderful reading program with Aero Academy that we partnered with the kinesiology department with the university. And it ran for about 2 years. And unfortunately, those people have come and gone, so we're not doing that anymore. But, with this new facility, we would be able to have that and bring that to the shelter.
Okay, what is a reading program in your world?
Yeah, so we bring dogs. We brought dogs to the school, and then the students would just sit there and read to the dogs.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. How great was that?
It was absolutely wonderful. You can go back into our social media and you'll see quite a few pictures. It gets the dogs out of the facility. Our facility is quite aged. Our facility was built in 1982, and the city took over the building in 2011. So it's quite aged. So it can get loud back there. Yeah. It can get really loud back there. So, it gave us the opportunity to get those dogs to kind of decompress for about an hour and a half. And, they did great. They did great. The students get to read, and those dogs are not judging if they can read or can't read. Whatever the case might be, we had all the way from first graders to fifth graders. And it was just a great program overall. And I'm hoping to elicit something like that if we do get a new facility.
Would the new facility be in the same property area where you are right now, or somewhere different?
Probably somewhere different. We are on an easement, so unfortunately we cannot build on that easement, so it will most likely be elsewhere within the city.
Gotcha. Gotcha. You were recently named a 2024 Rising Star in your profession. Tell me what that means within the profession and what it means to you.
It made me, I was so excited to get it. I was absolutely elated. I for one am, I'm not here without my team. In order for us to do what we need to do, I can't do it by myself. But I think it's great. And I'm choking up a little bit because, I don't feel like I deserved it. I just feel like there's just so many things out in the world, that, and not to give myself, the least credit. I just, I love what I do, and I, whether I got recognized for it or not, I hope that it brought everybody in that group of people on that day a sense of, what's going on outside the industry of veterinary medicine that also impacts their industry as well as far as the animal sheltering world. I was the only non-DVM out of all the recipients of that day. So the outstanding alumni, and then there were 2 rising stars. So I was the only non-DVM out of everybody. So it was quite the honor.
And this was presented to you by?
The dean of the vet school.
Wow.
He called me in my office. And for anybody, there's a video that they put for all of us. And when I saw his name on my caller ID in my office, I about died. It's just, what do we do?
Right.
Why is the dean calling me specifically? So I was quite elated to be able to speak with him. And then also the event that happened with all the other alumni. I mean, it was just amazing to be in there to see what everybody's doing and how we're all different. But I get quite bashful. I don't like talking about myself. I don't like getting praise for anything. I just, I love what I do so much. I love my team and everything that we have to offer our community. So it's just, it's quite special.
It sounds special, and it sounds like it's quite a testament to what you do on behalf of the city of Bryan and its citizens. Let's pivot over to what trends maybe you're seeing in terms of types of animals or circumstances that come your way, good, bad, or otherwise.
So, right now we're seeing a huge influx of animals just in general. We make it a point to let our community know microchipping or having some kind of identification on your pet is so important. My job and my officer's job, at the end of the day, when they find an animal or somebody brings us an animal, we want to get it home. We don't want it at our facility. We want to make sure that we have enough space in our facility for the animals that are truly strays. So right now we're just seeing a huge influx of animals, and that's everywhere, not just here.
And it's more from accidental separation from their ownership rather than abandonment.
Yes. We don't generally see a lot of abandonment. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen.
Right.
But as far as all the animals sitting in our facility right now, it's just a matter of some people don't even know we exist. People don't know that animal control is a thing. They don't know that we have 2 different shelters here sometimes.
Right.
So, it's about making sure that we get our names out, both facilities overall to ensure to check both facilities, check both animal control agencies to see if maybe their pet was seen somewhere else. But there's just a huge influx of animals right now everywhere. And it's put a strain on the industry overall right now.
Yeah. Basic pet care tips. I'd love to know the kinds of things that you would advise new pet owners who maybe come through the Bryan Animal Center to adopt, or just if we already have a pet but maybe you're kind of winging it a bit. What are some of the basic things that you really want to make sure people know and understand?
The most important thing is that pets are a lifetime commitment.
Yeah.
I have some stories, of people coming in saying, I don't want my 18-year-old dog anymore just because it's getting hard. And I mean, it's tough, it's tough. And I understand, circumstances and things like that change. But, pets are a lifetime commitment. Make sure that you are ready to see that pet from when you get it to its end of its life. Also, making sure wellness is a big part of it as well. Make sure your pet is rabies vaccinated, because if something happens, maybe a neighbor comes over and your dog bites somebody. Well, okay, now circumstances have changed where, now that dog's going to have to go into rabies quarantine or, whatever the case might be. It's so important to make sure that your pets are vaccinated.
Yeah.
Make sure that your pets are also spayed or neutered. It will help the longevity of that pet as well. They will live longer and they will create less of a headache for you, to be honest.
Yeah.
They won't be running loose, a lot of times. So, those types of things, make sure that, your pet's on a leash when you're walking out. You never know what could happen. Make sure they're on a leash. We have stray pets everywhere in the United States. It's not just locally here to Texas. Anything could happen. Your dog could get spooked and could, run onto the street. Well, if it's not leashed, well, you could have saved that pet if it was on a leash. Yeah. Make sure that you are paying attention to your local ordinances, your state laws, and your county laws to ensure that you're taking care of your pet properly. And the proper a shelter, for your pet. Not everybody wants their pets inside. While we would love everybody to keep their pets inside, there's actually no law that says that you have to keep your pets inside.
Right.
Yeah. So, make sure you have the proper things that they need.
But there are some basic standards, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes. There was SB5, which is something that just recently got passed. So it's a little bit more stringent on certain types of things. We can't tether anymore. Nobody can tether anymore with a chain.
Right.
So it has to be properly affixed to your dog. And then shelter as well. We here as a standard for the city of Bryan need to make sure that it has 3 sides and is above the ground so nothing gets soaked.
Okay.
Yeah, so you need to make sure that, first of all, that is something that your pet has. Now, in the elements, make sure that it's out of the wind. Make sure that if it does start raining, that your pet has the ability to get somewhere that's not going to also be soggy.
Right.
So, use the proper things to ensure that safety of that pet. And if we have a hurricane or something coming, bring your pets inside for the time being.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, July 4th or New Year's and things like that.
And, interestingly enough, we don't see a high intake, at least for us in our situation. We do not see a high intake when it comes to things like 4th of July or Independence Day. Where we see our most influx is when we have big storms and rain and those types of things. So here locally, that is kind of what we see. So after this large storm that happened the other day, guess what? We had several dogs come in, that came in through because of probably a loose fence or
fences blow down.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, it's just making sure that your pet has, the proper enclosures. If you are going to keep it outside, proper shelter, proper things to keep them from other ailments like fleas, ticks, heartworms, and things like that.
Yeah. So we're down to the last minute or so, but would you give just a quick nod to if there's a young person who feels like, I love animals so much, I want to be a vet, or I want to be a professional in that industry. Are there traits and characteristics in a young person that are really standouts to you? It's like, yep, that's the one who's going to be good in this profession.
A lot of people get into the veterinary industry because they don't like people.
Okay.
I will tell you this, you're going to have to.
Oh, spoiler.
Spoiler alert. The issues that we see are very much a person and a pet issue.
Yeah.
So you're gonna a main element of that is making sure that you understand and have empathy for those types of things, and then your just love for animals overall.
Okay.
Honestly, and the labor that goes in with all of this, the labor of love. It gets hot, it gets cold, it gets stinky. So
yeah, that's true.
Make sure you're prepared for all of those things.
Well, we could talk for a whole lot longer about it, but we have to wrap it up. Website in case people want to find out more about the Bryan Animal Center.
Sure. BryanAnimalCenter.com. You can find all of our information there, including information on animal control and all of our adoptable pets. Or if you've lost a pet, it's also on that website. Rising Star, Ashley Rodriguez Bishop, thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Brazos Matters is a production of Aggieland's Public Radio, 90.9 KAMU-FM, a member of Texas A&M University's Division of Marketing and Communications. Our show is engineered and edited by Matt Dittman. All Brazos Matters episodes are available on the KAMU website, on the NPR app, on YouTube, or your favorite podcast platform. We'd love for you to rate and review us. I'm Jay Sokol. Thank you so much for listening.